Good afternoon, Sharanya.
Good afternoon.
So we are expecting one more person to join. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes. We are recording this session because others who are not able to join have asked for the recording. So we'll wait for a
Okay,
couple of minutes and then we'll begin.
okay.
Okay, let us start. Uh, so, in sessions so far, we have discussed about what is AI. We kind of given introduction of what is AI, and then we talked about use of AI in businesses, and we looked at examples, specific examples of how companies are using AI. So that is what we did so far. Today, we'll now in this session we'll look at how what is the future of AI work with AI, how the businesses will change, and also we'll look at some societal impact of AI. Before I begin, Sharanya, do you have any specific expectations from this session? Do you want me to elaborate or discuss specific aspect of in this session? You can say so.
Yeah, so basically, I'm doing my resource project on this topic, which
Are
basically
you saying
talks about
something? I'm
how,
not able to hear you.
yeah, I am speaking. Can you hear me?
I'm unable to hear you. Are you saying something? Okay, I'll put
Yes,
on the
yes.
chat. Oh, I'm not able to hear you. So just give me a minute. There's some
Okay.
challenge. Just give me a minute. There's some. I'm not able to hear you. Yeah, can you please repeat?
Now, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm speaking.
Uh, I'm still not able to hear you.
Mm,
Okay,
sorry.
somehow I'm unable to hear you. Let me check my speaker. Speaker seems to be working fine for me. Uh, Sharanya, can you just check your mic whether it is working fine?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Now I
Yeah,
can
now
hear
is
you.
it fine?
Yeah, now it is fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm doing my research project on how
Mhm.
the algorithms that are used by companies, for example, like Google, Amazon, Facebook, all of them like create some type of stereotype in society. Like, for example, algorithms which are used by, or ads which are shown by Facebook are shown disproportionately towards men than women. So
Mhm.
something like that. If you could also give some information about.
Sure, sure. I will do. Huh? Just
Thank
give a
you.
minute. Just give a minute. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will discuss. Okay. So first of all, let me quickly talk about waves of business transformation, how the businesses are changing with AI. So we talked about processes which are being standardized earlier. So let us take an example of car manufacturing process. So the first transformation happened when the process was standardized, the assembly line was set up. Then the next step came when the automation started happening, and the majority of work could be done by automation. And then the third thing with AI, what we're seeing is the adaptation. I mean, each phase there was impact on labor. So earlier, let us say a car was manufactured, it could be done. It's more of a work of a people who would do majority of work together, right? So things could be so if you think of a car assembly line, what everybody is doing is a fixed amount of work. And you might have watched a Charlie Chaplin movie in which you could see that a person is supposed to do only one task repeatedly. That will bring the highest level of efficiency. That's the reason it was done. So instead of one person doing multiple things, different levels of task and contributing towards making one final outcome, with standardized process, what happened is that a person was supposed to do only one task repeatedly, and that, and if you have many people doing this their specific task repeatedly, you will get a very efficient way of manufacturing things like a car, right? So standardized processes got a lot of improvement in business process execution. At the same time, it had an impact because people became like a cog in the wheel, right? I mean, instead of they saying that,
Yeah.
let us say, making a shoe, you think of somebody who's working alone, makes the shoes at the end of it, and he or she feels so proud that they made of shoe. A person working in a shoe factory will never get that satisfaction because he or she is doing only one task, which is one of maybe few dozens of tasks, and just continue doing the same thing, right? But if you look at a business perspective, a shoe factory is much more efficient than having people who do the entire work themselves. So you actually standardization of process brings huge impact in terms of getting work done uh, in this fashion. If you look at the next wave of transformation which is happening, is where you will see that majority of the repetitive task could be automated, and this we could see in manufacturing setup with the help of robots. So with robot coming in, all that grunt work, all that difficult work, that repetitive tasking was automated. So you could use machines or robots in industry, or if you talk about office place, you could, a lot of repetitive work could be done by machines, and then the humans are freed to do something more complex work, somewhere it is not repetitive kind of a thing. So all the automated processes eliminated the manual labor which was involved in repetitive tasks, so which obviously helped increase the efficiency of the business process. At the same time, the unskilled labor kind of lost their jobs, and you need to be either semi-skilled or skilled to have jobs on the shop floor. Even at workplace, you would have seen, even in the services sector, where say banks or insurance company, the people who were labor, who was unskilled labor, like a peons, for example, were no longer required because majority of work, like transferring file from one place to other, use happen automatically or electronically rather than physical movement of people for which you needed people. So the people involved in doing unskilled work or unskilled labor was kind of eliminated, and you at least in a semi-skilled or fully skilled labor. Now we're talking about adaptive process. So where you not only automate, but you could adapt. So for example, if a particular customer is asking for a specific feature in a car, and that information would be entered in the system at the dealer, then at the time of manufacturing, this input could be taken into account, and that kind of a car could be manufactured. So instead of producing a same looking mass production of cars and then changing the things later, you could actually produce a car with the adaptation as per what the customers are looking for. So that kind of a thing could happen now, and a lot of AI could be done to take that feedback into account. And again, if you see this, the kind of intelligence that was required, human intelligence was required at a lower level of complexity of tasks could be taken over by machine intelligence. So you really need a higher order intelligence now to be done in a execution of business processes, and the lower level intelligence, which is like routine decisions, could be done by AI, which will again improve the efficiency and the outcome of business processes. So that is how you would see the process are changing. And you see, one way to look at is from a business perspective, where you see increase in business efficiency, increase in profitability, reduction of cost, and so on. But at the same time, from a labor perspective, it is not necessarily very good thing. Okay, there is a change. However, again, an argument is being made that it is not that the people are losing jobs, but the nature of jobs is changing. And the nature of job is changing in such a way that skilled jobs are more valued than unskilled jobs. Because if there are a job which doesn't require any skills, then that could be handled by the technology. So this is how things have been changing. So if you really put this debate, what machines can do and what humans can do, we could see that machines can do repetitive tasks. Now, the repetitive task could not only mean the physical task, like a robot arm picking things from one to other. That's a repetitive task which could be done by machines much better than humans. But even taking small decisions, like if you want to recommend some products to the customer, machines can do it better than humans. Second is analyzing huge data sets. So there's so much of data that we do look at now. It is very difficult for a human to really understand the data, and so much of a data get generated. But machines can do this much faster. I mean, they can actually process the big amount of data very easily. Okay. Thirdly, the routine cases, like for example, if you're looking at loan approval, that what we discussed in the earlier session, that if you're looking at a loan approval cases, or you're looking at insurance underwriting cases, the routine cases, there is not much variation, very straightforward cases. Decisions could also be made by machines. There are very routine kind of a cases. There's a history that is available for these cases, and the machines can do that job pretty well. But as you look at humans are still better in terms of resolving ambiguous information. So for machines to work, they need to get information or data which is very clear, unambiguous, very, very non-ambiguous information is required. Whereas humans can handle ambiguous information. Humans can exercise judgment in difficult cases, right? Which is very, very important aspect when it comes to AI setup. Now, I'll give you an example, a kind of a story that I would like to tell you, and this is an interesting story. So there was this company where a new manager came in, and he looked at data, and he figured out that the amount of stationery bought by the company actually increases in the month of May. So in the month of May, you see a spike in expenses. So he checked with the controller, the person who manages these expenses, and say what could be the reason for it. Being a new person, he was not aware of how things work there. So he asked the person there, and the person said that it looks like people actually take away the stationery home in the month of May, or month of May or June, because that's a time when they need to go out and buy stationery for their kids because of back to school time. And instead of going and buying stationery, the pens and notebooks and notepads and those kind of a thing, they actually must be taking it home, right? Now the manager thought about it, and they said, fair, fine. Next time, please ensure higher quality stationery in the month of May. Okay. Now this is a judgment. Okay. Now this kind of a decision would not come from a machine, because if you think this is kind of a decision, it could be a routine decision saying that we should do some kind of a checking and all that. But I guess for a manager, the importance was not about saving cost, but importance is that to improve employee satisfaction. So the judgment that is applied is something which is very important. So if you look at a claims fraud, or look at insurance underwriting cases, you may want to apply judgment at some point of time, and that is something that humans can do. Machines, we can't expect machines to do that. Thirdly, dealing with dissatisfied customers. So nowadays we talk about ChatGPT, and we said how ChatGPT could be used to interact with customers. But it could be helpful to interact with customers who have some specific queries, and they're looking for the information, and they can get it. But what about dissatisfied customers? What about angry customers? You still need humans to deal with them. So this is what we say, machine versus humans. Now, if we talk about humans plus machines, I mean, how these humans can work with machines. This is where two ways we could see humans can work with machines. One is that humans complement machines. But now, what does it really mean? So when you talk about AI, and we discussed that in the first session, that when you talk about AI models, they need to be developed, and for that they need data. If you're using machine learning, then we need a lot of data to be fed to train the model, and the data has to be clean, and you really need to get data, the required data, and you need to clean the data, and then you need to use that data for training. So without humans, machines can't be trained. That is obvious. But going forward, and if you have a system in place for say loan approval, or a system in place for say customer interaction, it's not that you do it one time. You need to do it again and again and again, right? And that is where you will again need humans. And again, these humans are skilled humans, right? Perhaps high skilled humans who need to understand what kind of a data is required, what is meant by clean data, and what is meant by non-clean data, and accordingly train this thing, right? So again, you need humans to train. Obviously, these humans are supposedly highly skilled because they need to understand what makes data clean. The secondly, the humans also need to test the outcome. I mean, whenever a system is built and it is learned, you need to test it, right? Again, testing and interpreting the outcome is also important. So if you need to really understand, okay, why the machine learning or this deep learning has been used to get arrive at a decision, somebody ask why, it's required that a human should be able to explain that, right? So interpretation of outcome is also responsibility of humans. So that is where you need humans. And again, these humans are highly super skilled because they need to understand how this AI works, and then only they can test and interpret the outcome. And thirdly, sustain. I mean, there is a lot of legal or ethical compliance that one is to look into. And that is again something that humans can do. So legal compliance is easier to understand. For example, if there's a discrimination that the machine is doing. And by the way, the machine is not doing discrimination just like that. Let me give an example. So when Amazon was hiring people earlier, they were having people, humans, to shortlist resumes. As the number of resumes increased, as the company became bigger, they started using machines or using AI to shortlist resumes. But very soon they realized that what the machine was doing, it is shortlisting only white male. They were not shortlisting resumes of colored people. They are not shortlisting resumes of females. It was bias which was there. And then there is nothing wrong with the system per se. I mean, if you look at the kind of algorithms is used, there's nothing wrong with the algorithm per se. The problem comes with the data. So the data which was given to train the agent, the AI agent, actually had more of white males. I mean, Amazon till time, actually hired more of white males. So that data was used to train the model. So they could see that the data had more of white males which are shortlisted and others were rejected. That is what the AI agent learned, and that is what it started doing it, right? So there's a discrimination which has happened, but the discrimination happened because of data, right? I mean, the data was like that. Obviously, at that point of time when the Amazon was small, perhaps it was not a big issue. But for a large company, if they are having this discrimination and continue to have discrimination without any change, then that could be an issue. And that is where, again, you need humans. Again, you need people who we typically call as compliance managers, who need to look into this and make a call. And then again, you may need to look at what kind of data that you are using to train or continue to train. And maybe you need to create new data which will ensure that this bias is not coming in, or you may have some guardrails to ensure that this output is not coming in. So you need humans to sustain use of AI, because in many places it is observed that such bias is unacceptable, and has to be, the AI agents have to be discontinued, right? So real to sustain them, you need humans to look at the compliance. And this is not only legal compliance, it's also ethical compliance, because it may not be illegal to hire only white male or to discriminate based on gender or race. It's in some it is illegal, but even if it is not illegal, you may want not to do it because of the ethical perspective. So that ethics is something that again humans can look at it. So it's not that AI agents can do all of it, but you need humans even when where AI is good in terms of say loan approval, or let us say insurance underwriting. These are the cases where machines can do a good job, but again you need people, humans, to train them, to explain or to interpret, test and interpret, and to sustain them by looking at the legal and ethical compliance of AI agents. On the other hand, AI also gives humans superpowers. So it does amplify. So today, if you want to do some marketing campaign, and if you are very good in analytics, you are good at numbers, you understand customers and so on, but you're not so good in generating images, you could use AI to do that. Your capabilities are amplified now. You know how, what kind of image you need, but you are not able to, or you don't have time, or you don't have that inclination. But you can choose images which are generated by others. Instead of having some human handle it for you, you could use AI to do it. So some of your repetitive tasks you could delegate to AI. So if you're doing some work in Excel and you do some repetitive task, you could use AI to handle that repetitive task. You could also be able to make recommendations. Let us say you're a financial consultant, personal finance consultant, advisor, and you want to make recommendations. You could take help of AI to generate some recommendations based on data, and then you can apply your judgment and make recommendations. So instead of you doing a lot of work from scratch, you could actually go ahead and use AI to handle these, make the recommendations for you, and then make decisions and make further recommendation, final recommendation, right? So you're amplifying your ability. You could also use AI to identify trends and anomalies, and that is something which is very difficult for you to do it. But once you identify trends and anomalies, you can make further decisions on that. So your abilities to work actually get amplified because of AI. The interaction also helps. You could handle low-level interaction with others. So if you get some queries, you're a person who get questions and you need to answer. Some of the routine questions could be answered by AI, and the higher complex questions could be handled by you. So the interactions could be amplified. You could also get services done, or you could have analytics accessed using voice instead of using keyboard or mouse. Now you can interact with systems, interact with services, online services, using voice. So that is what actually we do with when we say, Alexa, please switch off the lights. That is what you are doing. It's kind of giving a superpower. In a sense, you might have seen uh, old movies where you see there's a ghost in a human form, and you want to switch off the lights, the hands get extended, goes to the switch and gets switched off. Now we don't get that ability still as a humans, but we can simply say, Alexa, switch off the lights, and the lights get switched off. So in a way, it's giving a superpower to you as a human. While amplification and interaction is largely with software part of AI, embody is something where you see a robot being used. And these robots are nowadays called as cobots, because the earlier industrial robots used to be segregated from humans. So if you have an industrial robotic arm moving one thing to other, then if there's a human comes in between or something, it will not really understand that. So it has to be fenced, right? And there were incidents where robots actually harmed or created injury, caused injury to humans, because they were not uh, trained accordingly. But today's cobot, which is called collaborative robots, cobots, could help assist the humans on a very precise, arduous, or routine physical work. So you could have humans and cobots working together on an assembly line or on a mining work, and they could do it together, and that gives AIs, gives humans superpower. So before I move on to the last slide, I let me take a pause and see if there are any questions or comments.
No, nothing so far. That's fine.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So this is the last slide which we will discuss about preparing for the future of work. Is that, as we discussed already, AI could do many work. I mean, as we have seen earlier, we talked about 3 stages of process execution, where we said that earlier they were standardized, which kind of killed most of labor skills, or unwanted labor in a sense. Then we looked at automation, and then there is adaptation, right? So the skill requirement has changed, right? So today in future, when you're looking at future of work, we're looking at future where people need to be skilled and need to be skilled in a specific areas, because wherever machines can do a better than humans, you really you don't need humans there. So just to give a simple example, today if I ask anyone, can you give me addition of 387 and 283, so just add these two numbers, 99% person the people will pull out a calculator, either a calculator like a physical calculator or a mobile phone, to do these calculations. I mean, as a humans, we have stopped calculating because we see that it could be better done by machines. As we discussed in the first session, we looked at how that AI moment happened when we saw that image recognition is better done by machines than by humans. So humans have a 5% error rate, but machines have a less error rate. So you could see that certain tasks which can be better done by machines, you should not be even get into that. And that is where you will see certain skills become more important. The first is obviously creativity. But again, when you say creativity, it's not about making those images or videos, because many people kind of confuse creativity with images, because now if you see, this images could be generated. The creativity is to, as we say in Hindi, jo na dekhe ravi, wo dekhe kavi. So you could see something which is not there, think of it. And earlier you need to know drawing and you need to draw it to tell others what you are seeing, what you are thinking. Today, you don't need to do that. You could actually don't need perhaps a drawing. So you don't need to draw yourself, but what you could do is that you could actually use some tool to generate, like use Canva or something like that, and you could generate those images, and that is what reduces the work involved. But created is not going away. I mean, it generates images, but which one to use, how to change that doesn't change. The creative is more in that is what is required. Second is problem solving. Now you might be aware that today chat gpt kind of tools can generate code. So for example, if I'm a software engineer and I want to develop software, the code could be generated uh, by chat gpt. Does it mean that if I want to develop a mobile app for a very specific purpose, can chat gpt do it? The answer is no, because chat gpt can generate code, but it can't think of all that what is required when you do develop a software, which involves what are the requirements that need to be looked into, what is the prioritization requirement, how do we design this kind of a thing, and then finally you do coding. So coding is again some kind of intellectual work, but at a lower level than what we say design and what we say as a requirement analysis, right? So that is being taken care by AI, but you still need to look at how to solve a problem. That is still need to be done. The final step in that coding could be done using AI, but other things, the higher level task, need to be handled by humans. And finally, emotional intelligence, because again, as we saw in the first session, that we talked about that, we talk about AGI, or we talk about, super AI or say broad AI. You talk about that these are the type of AI where they will understand emotions, but they will, as of now, AI doesn't understand emotions, right? It doesn't understand emotions of people. So when you say Alexa, talk to Alexa, Alexa doesn't understand the emotions so much, or rather, it doesn't understand emotions, right? So you still need humans to understand. So that emotional intelligence is something which is very important. That skill becomes actually more critical. It was always important skill, but it becomes more critical in the AI. Lastly, continuous learning and upskilling, as people say that uh, AI will not replace human jobs, but people who know AI will replace jobs of will replace people who don't know AI. So continuous learning and upskilling is very important, because as we say, many new jobs would come in. The compliance officer is a job which was not earlier there. It is kind of got generated now. So you need humans because AI has its own limitations. AI can't do its own compliance. AI will not. You'll need some people to explain AI. You need people to train AI. You need people to explain the AI outcome, interpret AI outcome. You need people to sustain AI. And these are the new tasks. These are the new roles that are there. And this requires continuous learning and upskilling. Okay. So with this, I'm done with my inputs. We have 5 more minutes to go. So let us take this time to discuss. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Okay, so I just had one question. You spoke about the Amazon bias which was there. So you're saying that it's not the fault of the AI, but of the person who made the code or the algorithm to.
No, it is not an algorithm which is at fault. So we are using machine learning, which is what I discussed in the first session. What machine learning is, you give data, the past data. So you don't give the rules. Rather, you give data from where the algorithm will pick up the rules. Right? Now, if the
Hmm.
data had this kind of a bias, then the rules will have bias. So it is not the algorithm which is having a bias, it's the data that was used to train is a bias. So obviously, when you say algorithm here, and when the people use the term algorithmic bias, they are referring to algorithm, which algorithm plus data, or the, so there is no uh, programming that was done by any humans. It was algorithm is basically about training. So when you say bias by the machine, it is because the cause of it is that there is a bias in the data which was used for training. So the solution also is to use data which doesn't have that bias. But only challenge is the data that is used is so huge that you need humans talent to figure out, what kind of a data, whether the data has. So you have to filter that data for a bias, which again you can use AI, but you need to do that. So it is not a AI, just like a magic. It creates bias. It's actually the data that we're giving to AI agent for training is something that needs corrections.
Okay. And I had a last question. I was reading about this other case with Apple and Goldman Sachs, where they introduced an Apple card
Mhm.
in the market, which basically gave lower credit limits to women than men, even when they had like the same financial background. And what happened was that like the AI had learned, even when there was no gender being recorded, like the AI had learned to identify proxies, like something which is correlated to gender. So how does that happen? And still give lower credit ratings to women because of that.
Yes, because this was observed. So it was a data that was given to them, had this kind of a thing. So when you give this data, which is called label data, so the data was
Hmm.
given that this is the profile of customer, and this is where the card was given, or the credit limit was given. This much credit limit was given. Okay. So the label data, it is called a label data. So you kind of say these are the input variable, this is the output variable, and we have a data where we know what is the input and output for the past 5 years or whatever, that millions of records that we have, using which, once the data is given for training, then it will start predicting the output for the given new input. So again, the data which historically been the case, so whatever the biases which were historically there, right, that is what will
Yeah.
come out of it. Okay. But the challenge is that then to clean data for this bias will be a humongous task. And that is where many companies are going ahead and launching something with that inherent bias. So we need to detect bias. So the more work is involved. That is where the humans plus machines are there. You need people to look at the data and improve the quality of data. You need people to interpret, explain the outcome, and you need people to sustain AI agents with correction, with feeding more correct data and accordingly changing the behavior of the AI agent.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. And that's kind of ends our session. So if there are no further questions, we can close this session now.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.